7 months ago, the Houston Rockets traded their franchise superstar in James Harden. This was one of the biggest moves of the last decade since Harden had led them to so much success in just a season there. He solidified himself as the second best player in Houston Rockets history, so trading him was obviously a big deal. And when the trade happened, literally everyone thought it was underwhelming, since in return for a top 7 player in the NBA and a superstar, they got Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Rodion Kurucs, 4 future first-round picks, along with 4 future first-round pick swaps when it was rumored that they could have potentially gotten Ben Simmons or Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert. So as I said, when this move happened, most people didn't think the Rockets got that much in return, but as of late, especially in the 2021 NBA draft, the Rockets have been turning their franchise around, getting multiple young players who have a lot of potential, and for that reason, it has led me to make this video where I'll be discussing how the Houston Rockets bounced back perfectly after the James Harden trade, and also just discussing their young core and their future. Before we get into the video, I noticed a lot of you guys have been watching my video, yet you're not really subscribed. I just wanted you to know I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to my channel. I also would ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want more NBA content like this, as I do post every single day. Also, if you want to help me reach my goal of 1,500 subscribers, would mean a lot to me. Also, drop a comment on this video to start a conversation with me, because I do respond to all of my comments, and play that intro. The first significant thing the Houston Rockets did after trading James Harden was trading for Kevin Porter Jr. Before the Rockets traded for Kevin Porter Jr., he was on the Cleveland Cavaliers. He had a pretty solid season in his rookie year, showed a lot of potential to be a future like all-star, just a really good player. Going into a second season, he had some family issues which caused him to miss a lot of the games because I guess he was sad or something. Then when he was ready to return back to the team, felt like the team disrespected him because they gave Torrey and Prince his locker. Then that led to him like throwing stuff and yelling at the Cavaliers management and things like that. Then I guess the Cavaliers decided that they didn't want to put up with his attitude, so they traded him to the Houston Rockets for only a future second-round pick. When he first got to Houston, he started off playing in the G League, but after playing amazingly over there, it was pretty clear that he was an NBA talent, so the Rockets brought him up to their normal team, and in his starting role, he played absolutely fantastic. As in one of the games on the Rockets, he scored a legit 50 points against the Milwaukee Bucks, which are one of the better defenses in the whole NBA, while being defended by Drew Holiday, who's considered one of the best defenders in the NBA, showing what an explosive scorer he can be. And overall, in his time with the Rockets, he averaged 16 points and 6 assists on decent enough efficiency. Porter to me is a guy who could be an all-star level player, or maybe even a superstar, since he's really good at handling the ball. He has a deep assortment of moves, floaters, step backs, all those things. He's also a very confident player, and if you want to be a player at that level, you have to be confident. He's a guy who could shoot the 3 and hit the 3 off the dribble, and he can hit contested ones. He's also a guy who facilitates and makes passes that other guards can't make. I'm not really supposed to say this, but he kind of reminds me of James Harden just due to the fact that they're both left-handed and they have a bunch of moves and they're both 6'5". I'm not saying he's going to be as good as James Harden because that's just crazy to think, but I definitely think he could be an all-star at least. And then when the 2021 NBA draft lottery came, Houston was projected to for sure get a top 4 pick in the draft, and they had actually a decent chance of getting the number 1 pick. They ended up getting the number 2 pick, which in my opinion was still a huge W, meaning that in this draft class that is filled with a bunch of players who look like they can be all-stars or superstars, the Rockets would be choosing at the top. Then when the 2021 NBA draft happened, it was kind of obvious that Houston was going to select Jalen Green second overall. I think this is a really smart selection, since Green is a 6'5" shooting guard who's probably the best athlete overall in this draft class. He has a very explosive first step that allows him to get to the basket easier than most prospects. He can finish plays above the rim and he excels in transition. Not only does he attack the rim with aggression, but he does it with finesse when he needs to. He can draw fouls at a good rate, which is an underrated underrated skill you need to be in the NBA to be an elite scorer. He's also shown the ability to create his own shot and get his shot off with minimal space. He's a streaky shooter, but when he's on fire, he's nearly unguardable. To point out some of his weaknesses is the fact that although he has a pretty solid handle, his handles are pretty loose and not really tight. Also, at times he relies on his natural athleticism a little bit too much. He also apparently struggles with his shot selection as he takes too much jump shots at times when he should just attack the rim. He's not a passer at all. He's not really looking to get assists. As I said, he's a pretty streaky three-point shooter, and for his size, he's not an outstanding rebounder. He's not a liability, but he's not a guy who's going to go out there and get a bunch of rebounds. I forgot to mention he's actually a pretty solid defender due to his athleticism, quick hands, and height. He's probably not going to be a lockdown defender, but due to his athleticism and quick hands, he's probably not going to be a horrible one. In my opinion, Green is a prospect who can either become a legit star in the NBA and maybe even a superstar just due to his athleticism and his ability to make shots. I actually think he has superstar potential. So Green is someone who I thought was a smart move for them selecting, but I also selected some other guys in the draft who I think can be steals. With the 23rd pick, they selected Usman Garuba, who's a guy who looks like he can't be anything special on the offensive side of the floor, but he looks to be one of the better defenders in this whole draft class, since he's a 6'8", 220-pound forward who's a really active defender and he's a really good athlete. I don't think he's going to be anything like a star in the future or anything like that, but I think he can be a really good defender, and that's something that definitely could come to use. With the 24th pick, they selected Josh Christopher, who's a guy who was projected to be in the lottery before the college season started. And he had a little bit of a down season, but he's a guy who I think has starter potential. He's going to handle the ball really well, and he can create his own shot at a decent level, and he's really good at attacking the rim. He also has crazy athleticism, and he's definitely a guy who's going to be fun to watch. Just a really exciting player. And then later in the draft, they got a guy in Alperen Sengun, who's a 6'11" center who plays like a modern NBA center. Not a modern NBA center, like a back in the day type of center. Really good in the post, not much of a defender, but he's really good at rebounding. So maybe he could be a solid rotation player. I don't really know crazy amount about him, but I do know he's solid from watching his summer league game. I also like that selection. I think all of these guys have pretty good potential, especially Jalen Green and Josh Christopher. So they built their own little mini young core. To talk about some key guys from their main roster, they have Kenyon Martin Jr., who's a guy who showed a lot of potential to be a really good role player. He can shoot the three ball at a decent level, and he's a guy who's really good on the defensive side of the floor when it comes to helping on defense, as we've all seen him get those crazy highlight blocks, blocking everyone and their mama. He's also a pretty solid rebounder, and he's only 20 years old, so there's plenty of room for him to improve. Also, Jason Tate, he's a guy who's an older rookie as he's 25, but last season he was one of the more impressive and underrated rookies. I think he was even top 5 for Rookie of the Year voting. Seems like a guy who can be a solid player as well. He seems like a guy who could be a really good backup guard. They also have Christian Wood, who I think is an all-star level player and a top 10 center in the league. I think he's going to be good for them if they're ever trying to win. They also have John Wall, who at this point is at least a guy who can help the young guys out with this veteran leadership. To conclude the video, after the James Harden looked like a terrible deal, Houston has rebounded to get Kevin Porter Jr., who's a guy who looks like he'd be an all-star level point guard. Also getting Jalen Green, who looks like he can be a superstar franchise level player. Also getting a guy in Josh Christopher, Usman Garuba, and Alperen Sengun, who are all guys who look like they could be decent players in the NBA. And with them already having guys like Jason Tate, Kenyon Martin Jr., who look like guys who could be solid role players. Houston went from looking like a dead franchise to now looking like they have a bright future and can be one of the more exciting teams to watch in the NBA next season. If they could even trade John Wall's contract, it would be even better, but nonetheless, the Rockets have a pretty bright future, and they definitely bounced back since the Harden trade. Anyways guys, that's it for the video. Let me know whether or not you think the Rockets have a bright future. Drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want more NBA content like this. And if you want to reach my goal of 1,500 subscribers, drop a comment on this video to start a conversation with me, because I do respond to all of my comments. And I'm out.